Hello and welcome to another HanDrinksSolo wine info video, and today we're talking about the Olifantsberg Grenache Rose 2022. In this video we'll take a little look at what the wine tastes and smells like in the glass, and then we'll look at some of the things that happen in the cellar and in the vineyards in order to make it taste the way it does. For the map geeks amongst us, Olifantsberg, which means Elephant Mountain, is located in the Relegated district, which is one of South Africa's more inland wine districts. And if we zoom in a little further on the map, we'll see that most of the wine estates in this area are fairly low down on the valley floor, whereas Olifantsberg is a little higher up on the actual foothills of the Olifantsberg or Elephant Mountain. Incidentally, if you have a look at it from an aerial view, it actually looks like an elephant. Now, the question one has to ask is, was it named Elephant Mountain before or after the advent of aeroplanes in Africa? Anyway, the estate's position in the foothills and the resultant extra altitude means that Olifantsberg is a little bit cooler than the rest of the estates that are situated lower down in the sometimes quite stifling heat of the valley floor. The winemaker at Olifantsberg is the now fairly widely known Elizma Visser. Not only is she an incredibly sharp viticulturist, but she was also named Tim Atkin's Young Winemaker of the Year in 2021. Her Olifantsberg range of wines have become known for their distinctly lighter-footed and more aromatic style, even when she's working with cultivars that are not known for being particularly aromatic. Now, Elizma and her husband Fadi have chosen to focus mostly on Rhone cultivars, so they work with Grenache Blanc and Rosé, but also Grenache Noir, Syrah, Mourvèdre and Carignan. And then there is still a streak of South African patriotism running through, which means that they also make 2 really good Chenin Blancs and 1 solid Pinotage. As a side note, Rosé is a grape that they are wanting to work with more and more, and their brand new white blend, the Matriarch, is 70% Rosé, which makes it a fairly rare offering in the world of South African white blends. But today we're talking less about Rosé and more about their Grenache Rosé, so let's give it a sniff. Well, up front we get a fairly inviting nose of pleasant fresh strawberries, some raspberry fruit juice, and even a little bit of citrus. And for me, it's that mix of red berry candy or sometimes musk sweets and citrus that are present in almost all of South Africa's better Grenache wines. When we take a sip, the palate adds a whole new dimension. Because while there is that strawberry fruit and the fruit chew candy, there's also a lovely leesy texture element that carries through, as well as the juicy blood orange citrus acidity that we talked about earlier. Perhaps what's interesting is that on the palate, you get an additional whiff of white pepper towards the end that perhaps you might not have got on the Vanguard. Now, when we taste things like white pepper or blood orange or red berry candy on a wine, and it all comes together to make something quite delicious, we usually say something like, oh, this is a fun rosé, or, oh, this is a serious rosé.
Very serious.
But we don't often say things like, this is an academic rosé.
No one says that. He's right, you know.
And yet, that's exactly what this wine is, because the practices that went on behind the scenes in order to make this wine are quite mind-boggling. For starters, they harvested the grapes at a whole range of different ripenesses. Some of the really early picks were picked while the grapes were still orange, and these very high acid parcels would then have been fermented in a very protective manner in stainless steel. And then later on, some slightly riper parcels perhaps would have been fermented in old oak. And even other parcels still would have been fermented in what's called a dirty ferment, when there are very high NTU units or nephelometric turbidity units. Essentially, it means that the juice is fermented with lots of pulp and it's all murky and it looks dirty and unappealing, but these dirty ferments can often trigger a whole new range of flavors and aromas, which can be fascinating. So, all of these parcels aren't just there to make the wine taste nice. Each of the flavor compounds and aromas and results that come from these are tracked and noted by the winemakers and the viticulturists, and so that they can use this data to isolate exactly when certain flavor precursors emerge in the grapes at various ripening levels. They can then take these learnings and not only apply them to future vintages, but they can also be carried across when they begin producing a Grenache Noir from those same vines. So if you have ever doubted that tired old slogan that great wine starts in the vineyards, this is surely one wine that could cure you of your skepticism. But to do that, you'll have to taste it yourself. And that's all we have time for today, but if you enjoyed the video, then why not subscribe to the HanDrinksSolo YouTube channel, where we talk about wine science, cellar mastery, unusual cultivars, and some of the rising winemaking stars that are coming out of the dynamic South African winelands.